Hi again, I'm Sarah, and in today's video I want to talk about the top 5 things that I wish I knew before I started grad school. So just for reference, I am going into my 3rd year of a combined MA and PhD program at Indiana University. I study English, specifically rhetoric and composition, so this video is going to be real quick, just the top 5 things that I wish I knew before I started. So again, all of the advice that I'm giving in this video is really just coming from my own experiences and my own perspective of being a graduate student for these past few years at IU. None of this is reflecting the university, and none of this is speaking for anyone else's experience because all I know is my own. So first, grad school is very different from undergrad. So since I went straight from undergrad right into my graduate program, I didn't take a gap year or anything like that, I thought that I was just signing up for college part 2, but oh my goodness, it is a very different situation entirely. So not only is the workload different, whereas I might have been reading maybe 2 books or 1 book every 2 weeks in undergrad, here I'm reading 2 books every week, at least 2 books every week in grad school. And just the quality of work expected is obviously much higher. You're writing longer papers, you're expected to have like deeper thinking. But besides all of that, I just had no idea that I would have all of this responsibility. I'm in charge of managing how I'm going to spend my stipends. I'm in charge of managing my own dental, vision, health insurance, all of that stuff. So a lot more is expected of you in terms of life stuff as well. You're also expected to keep track of your own academic progress on your own. So whereas in undergrad, I was able to sit with my advisor quite frequently to say, what's the difference between this English class and this English class? Or am I meeting all the requirements for gen eds? And I was getting a lot of emails about here's how many credits you need in order to graduate on time. In grad school, you can sit down with the director of graduate studies, and there are secretaries for the department and all of that you can email if you need to, but for the most part, it is just expected that you are keeping track of your own academic progress. You know how many credits you need to complete coursework, you know the stages of when you should be going up for your perspectives, when you're going to be dissertating, all of that stuff. No one is constantly sending you those emails. So for the most part, you're just required and expected to be much more responsible overall. So I know that that sounds a bit silly to say, like you graduated college, of course people are expecting you to be an adult, but I think that it's worth saying because I just was not aware of that at all. I thought that, again, I was signing up for college part 2, maybe a little bit more challenging, but it is much closer to the workforce, a job, than it is to college. So keep that in mind. Grad school is full-fledged adulthood. I do not think that it is similar to college. It's more similar to having a real job, in my opinion. The second thing that I wish I would have known before starting grad school was that nothing you turn in is going to be perfect. So of course we hear that all the time, never strive for perfection, perfection's impossible, but in undergrad, I just had a lot more time on my hands to really read through my paper 3, 4, even 5 times before I submitted it to make sure that everything was perfect, no comma was out of place or anything like that. My ideas were sound, my thesis statements were always really strong. But in grad school, you're working on multiple projects at the same time and under a much stricter time crunch. And you're also juggling teaching responsibilities and other life responsibilities. So professors are very understanding of that. Normally what you turn in is just going to be the core of something that you could push towards publication or something that you might develop a little bit more to make a conference presentation. What you end up turning in your courses is always the first draft. Professors seem to be much more understanding of that than they were in undergrad, at least in my experience. But I wish that someone would have just told me, let go of your aspirations for perfection. Sometimes good is good enough, oftentimes mediocre is good enough, even just done is good enough. And I really just wish that I would have had the phrase good is good enough plastered on my wall from day one, because I always felt like I was behind. I felt like I was putting in twice as much work as everyone else to turn in work that was half as good as theirs. But ultimately, just try your best. Your best is going to be good enough. It's never going to be perfect. There's always more time if you want it to be perfect in the publication stage, in the conference development stage, but the things that you turn in coursework are not expected to be perfect. And this third point might be a little bit weird because I'm giving advice in this video, and this point is about how to really take advice. So something that I wish I would have known is that everyone's advice is filtered through them. So what I mean by this is everyone loves to give advice. Advice is not hard to find, especially in my experience in grad school. So when I first entered grad school, I was just like really overwhelmed. I moved across the country. I had no friends there. I wasn't even sure if this is really what I wanted to do. It was a weird time in my life for just a lot of other reasons. So of course I was seeking out advice from a lot of like more farther along students in the program, from like professors who I didn't even know yet, like how many classes should I take, which classes should I take, what should I focus in, what should my minor be. I ended up getting really overwhelmed from all of the different perspectives that I was hearing, and I just didn't know who to trust. I just didn't know what the right answers were. But you'll come to see that the advice that people give you is always filtered through their own experiences, filtered through them, which again sounds like a bit of an obvious point, but this is something that I wish I would have known, rather than trying to like please everyone and make everyone else's or take everyone else's advice into account. I was able to just really focus on the 2 to 3 people who I came to really trust, the people who really came to know me, to know what was best for me. Because I feel like a lot of the times when people give you advice, of course it's always really well intentioned, but they often don't know you, especially if you're just starting out. They don't know what your goals are, they don't know what your track is. So just keep that in mind, that the advice that they're giving might be better suited for someone else, and you do not have to take everyone else's advice. Do what's best for you, because ultimately your grad school journey is your journey and it is no one else's. Fourth point is pursue what is exciting to you. Don't pursue what other people have told you would be a good area to pursue. Maybe it was a professor, a parent. Don't worry about all of that. Grad school is the time for you to do what is interesting to you. So maybe when you were doing research to apply, you found that there was a gap in the literature in this area, or like a lot of people weren't studying the specific field. If you're doing it just because you feel like it's understudied, that's not going to be enough to keep you going. PhD programs are really long and intense programs, and if it's not something that you feel passionate about in your own heart, you're gonna hit a wall and you're gonna be so over it very, very quickly. Chances are, even if you think that you've identified something that a lot of people haven't, there is someone out there who's studying it and someone out there who's passionate. So just study something that is meaningful to you. But the fifth and final point is, do not put your life on pause to be a graduate student. So this is something also that I wish I would have had plastered not only on my wall but across my whole room, in my purse, my car, everywhere, that I cannot put my life on pause to be a graduate student. So just like having a real job or anything like that, that's just one part of your life. Yeah, you might use it when you introduce someone as part of like an identifying factor. Oh, I'm a PhD student in this program, I study this, but it's not your whole life. You also have a family, you also have relationships, you also have pets, so many other things that you're working on, hobbies, goals, other dreams, a house. And if you're moving to a new city, you have a whole life to develop there. So when I first entered grad school, I just like fell under the illusion that I think so many people do, that like this is just my whole life. And I forgot that I have parents that I should be checking in with. I forgot that I have siblings, that I have friends, that other people have a lot going on. And I am so much more than just the work that I'm doing, this program that I've entered into. So above all else, that's my biggest recommendation, is you cannot put your life on pause to be a graduate student. Being in grad school is just a part of your life. I think a lot of professors like to make it seem like it is all that you should be focusing on, and yeah, it's important and it's formative years of your life, but there's other things. There's a lot of life to be lived outside of just grad school. Just as these are formative years of your life because of all the ways that you're learning and changing, these are also formative years of your life because it's a significant chunk of your life. 5 to 6 to 7 years is a long time to be spent just doing one thing. This is something that I'm very much still learning, just like all of these pieces of advice are, and this is by far the hardest one for me to realize. I feel like I'm so often caught up in grad school that I forget to realize that there's a whole life to be lived outside of it. But I recommend just trying to like really make your hobbies something that you put like active and conscious time into. For example, I would see a lot of movies with my roommate, and I would make sure that we were seeing at least one movie a weekend. I'm really into like drawing and doodling and all of that, and that's something that I will set aside time to make sure, like, am I getting this done? I read books for pleasure. Just because I'm reading a lot for classwork doesn't mean that I don't get to read anymore. You cannot put your life on pause. There's so much more life to be lived. So I hope that you all found some of these tips helpful. Let me know which was the most helpful for you. Let me know any other questions you have about grad school, questions you have about getting a PhD or an MA in English, about IU. I would love to help any of you all out with that. And if you have other suggestions or recommendations of videos that you'd like to see from me, maybe how to write a personal statement or something like that, I'm really happy to help. If you want to see more of this content, please like this video, subscribe, all of that fun stuff. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in my next video.